So then let's go ahead and test out this code. The first method call that we're given is 0, 1. And then this is what our puzzle looks like before the call to clear pair. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the value at the given row and column. So what we're looking at is the first row. So here's what the first row looks like, and the second column. So the value there is 7. So we're either going to try to find another 7 in the two-dimensional array, or we're going to find 10 minus 7, which is 3. So if either one of these show up in our two-dimensional array past the row that we are currently in, we will have found a match. So then we are going to set our R equal to row, which is 0. So we can start at the first row in the two-dimensional array. And we're going to make sure that that is less than puzzle.length. So how many rows do we have? We have 3 rows. So 0 is less than 3. So we can go inside of the outer for loop. Then we're going to set our C equal to 0. And we're going to make sure that's less than the number of columns. It looks like the number of columns we have is 4. 0 is less than 4. So we can go ahead and go inside of the inner for loop as well. So the first thing we're going to check is that we're not just looking at the value that at the element of the given row and column. So R, which is 0, is that equal to row? It is actually equal to the row. So what we're going to get is false. But since this is a OR, we can check the other part of the OR. So the other part of the OR is 0 is not equal to the column. And we're actually going to get a true here, right? So false and a true is going to evaluate to a true. So we can go ahead and go inside of the if statement. We would only fail this if this was a false and a false. Then they would be a false. But since it's a false and a true, it's going to be true. So let's see if the value at row 0, column 0 is equal to either of the two numbers we're trying to find. So the value at 0, 0 looks like it's 0. So this does not equal 7. And unfortunately, it also doesn't equal 3. So 0 does not equal 3. So we can't say that we found a match. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to increment our C. So now we're looking at row 0, column 1. So let's go ahead and check again. So is the row is 0, is that equal to the row that was passed in? Unfortunately, this is false. So then when we check the other value here, so is 1 not equal to call the value passed in? This is unfortunately also false. So we're going to get a false and a false. And the reason why is because we are actually looking at the given row and column, and that cannot be a pair with itself. So what this means is we're going to have to increment our C to be 2. So now what we're looking at is 0 not equal to 0, which is false, but it's okay. We can look at the column. So is 2 not equal to 1? This is true. So this is going to evaluate to true. So we can go ahead and look at this value. So the element at this index is going to be row 0, column 2, and that looks like it's 9. Unfortunately, 9 is not equal to 7, and it's also not equal to 3, so we're going to have to keep incrementing our column. Maybe I can simplify it a little bit. We've already checked if R does not equal the row. That's still going to be a false. Our C, if that is not equal to 1, that's true, so we can go ahead inside of the if statement. So we're going to check if the value at the 0th row, 3rd column, which is 0, that is not equal to 7, unfortunately, and it's also not equal to 3. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to try to increment our C again. So 4 is no longer less than 4. So we're done with the inner loop. So now what we can do is we increment our R. So now we are looking at the second row in the two-dimensional array. So we can go back to 0 here, and we can check if R is not equal to the row. So R is now 1. 1 is not equal to 0, and this is now true. So we don't actually even need to check the column because we are no longer in the same row. So we know it won't be at the given row, given column, because both need to be true. So we can go ahead and go inside of our if statement. So the element at row 1, column 0 is 7. I'm getting a good feeling about this one. 7 is actually equal to 7. So we're going to get true for this if statement. It doesn't matter if it's equal to the second value, which it won't be, right? 7 does not equal 3. But because it's an OR, we only needed one of those cases to be true. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the value at the current row and column to be 0. So it used to be 7. It's now 0. Now we're also setting the value at the given row and column to 0. So this is going to be puzzle at 1, 0 is equal to 0 now, and this is going to be puzzle at 0, 1 is now equal to 0 as well, and we are able to return true. This is what the puzzle two-dimensional array looks like after the call to clear pair. It seems like it matches up with how we manipulated it inside of this method call, and the return type is true, so this looks like it matches up with what we got from testing our code. All right, the next call to clear pair has 2 and 2 as the parameters that are being passed in. So what is the value at the third row, third column? It looks like it is 1. So that's the value, first value that we're trying to find. And then what is 10 minus 1? It is 9. So if we find either one of these two values in the third row or further down in the array, then we have found a pair. So we're going to set r equal to row, which is 2, and we're going to make sure that that is less than puzzle.length, the number of rows, so that's 3. Then we're going to set c equal to 0, and we're going to make sure that's fewer than the number of columns, which for this two-dimensional array is 4. So then we are going to make sure that r is not equal to row. So is 2 not equal to 2? Well, unfortunately it is, so this is going to be false. But then we can check the other part of the OR statement. So is 0 not equal to 2? It looks like this part is true, so we can go inside of the if statement. So now what we're going to do is we're going to check if the value at 2, 0, if that's equal to 1, it seems like that value is 5. 5 is not equal to 1, and it is also not equal to 9. So it doesn't look like we found a pair there. So what we're going to do is we're going to increment our column. So now we are looking at, we're checking whether r is not equal to row. Well, remember, we're still looking at the same row, which is 2, and 2 is equal to 2, so that's going to be a false. But we can look at the second part of the if condition, which is c not equal to column. So 1 is not equal to 2, so this is going to be true. So we can go inside. We're going to grab the value at 2, 1, and that is going to be 4. 4 is not equal to 1, and it's also not equal to 9. So unfortunately, we have not found a pair there either. We're going to increment our c again. So now it is 2. We're still in that same row of 2, so that's going to be a false here. And then when we check whether c, which is 2, is not equal to col, which is also 2, that's also going to be a false. So we're actually looking at the given row and column, and that cannot be a pair with itself. So we're not even going to go inside of the if statement. We're just going to increment our c to be 3. So now, once again, we're still looking at that same column. 2 is equal to the row, so this is going to be a false. And then we're going to check whether c is not equal to col. So is 3 not equal to 2? That is true, so we can actually go inside of the if statement. We're going to check whether puzzle of 2, 3, whether that's equal to 1. So the value here is going to be 2. 2 is not equal to 1, unfortunately. It's also not equal to 9, so we have not found a pair there either. And then when we try to increment our c, we're going to get that 4 is no longer less than 4, so we are done with the inner loop. Then when we try to increment our r, the outer loop, we're going to get 3. 3 is not less than 3, so we actually are done with both the inner and the outer for loops, and it doesn't seem like we've found a pair because we didn't return true, so we're going to return false in this method call. Here's what puzzle looks like after the call to clear pair. It is the exact same because we weren't able to clear any pairs, and the return type is also going to be false because there wasn't an element in row 2 or a later row to pair with that value. The next method call we have is clear pair 1, 1. So here is what the puzzle looks like before the call to clear pair. So at 1, 1, that's going to be the second row, second column. So it looks like the value we're trying to find is 4, and then also 10 minus 4, which is 6. So we're trying to find one of those two values. So we are going to set r equal to row, which is 1, and we're going to make sure that's less than the number of rows in the two-dimensional array, which is 3. And then we're going to set rc equal to 0. We're going to make sure that's fewer than the number of columns, which is 4. We're going to make sure that we're not looking at the value at the given row and column. So we're going to look at r, make sure r is not equal to row, which is 1. So it looks like this is false, actually. Then we're going to check if c, so 0, if that's not equal to col, which is 1. So this is actually true. So we can go ahead inside of the if statement. We're going to grab the value at 1, 0. And we're going to check what that is. It looks like that value is 0. So 0 is not equal to 4, and it is also not equal to 6. So we have not found a pair here, unfortunately. So what we're going to do is we're going to increment RC. So now we're looking at row 1, column 1. Spoiler alert, that's the value that was passed in. So what we're going to get is we're going to get a false here because both of these things are false. False or a false is going to evaluate to a false. So we're not going to go inside of the rest of the logic. So then what we're going to do is we're going to increment RC again. So now we have a false because R1 is still equal to the row. But then when we compare the column, 2 is not equal to 1. So we are going to get a true here. So we can go inside of the if statement. We're going to grab the value at 1, 2 is going to be 3. 3, unfortunately, is not equal to 4, and it's also not equal to 6, so we have not found a pair here. So we're going to have to increment RC to be 3. R is still equal to the row, so that's still false, but C3 does not equal the column, which is 1, so this is going to be true. So we can go ahead and now look at puzzle of 1, 3, and that's going to be 6. 6 is not equal to 4, but it is equal to 6, which is the other value that we were trying to find. So the reason why that works is 4 plus 6 is equal to 10. So we have actually found a pair. So what we're going to do is we're going to set puzzle at 1, 3 equal to 0. And we're also going to set puzzle at 1, 1 equal to 0. So this is what puzzle is going to look like now. And what we're also going to do is we're going to return true because we were able to find a pair. So this matches up with the expected value of what puzzle looks like after that call and the expected return type. So yay. All right, so for this final call to clear pair, it looks like we have a 3x3 puzzle array. I'm not sure why they switched up the size for just the last call, but whatever. So the value that was passed in was 0, 2. So that's going to be in the first row, third column. So it looks like the value is 9. And the other value that we could potentially try to find is going to be 10 minus 9, which is 1. So we're either looking for 9 or 1. So we're going to initialize our R2 row, which is 0. And we're going to make sure that that's less than puzzle.length, the number of rows, which is 3. For our inner loop, we're going to set our C equal to 0 and make sure that's fewer than the number of columns, which is 3 as well. And then we're going to double check we're not looking at the given row and column. So is 0 not equal to 0? That's actually false. It is equal. But we can also look at the other case, which is whether C, which is 0, is not equal to col, which is 2. That is true. So we can go inside of this if statement. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab puzzle of 0, 0, first row, first column, and it looks like that value is 1. 1 is not equal to 9, but it does actually match up to the second case that we're checking if it's equal to second value defined. So if the value we were looking at, the given one, plus the one that we're currently looking at now is equal to 10. So we can go inside of this if statement. What we're going to do is we're going to set the value at 0, 0 equal to 0. And then we're also going to set the value at 0, 2 equal to 0. So we've cleared out those two pairs. Here's what the puzzle two-dimensional array looks like now, and we're also going to return true because we were able to find a pair. This matches up with the expected return type for this method call and what puzzle should look like. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below and I'll get back to you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.